to inspire and elevate our country, our economy, our people, and our youth to achieve excellence and success. Roots Connections on Q. Every other Wednesday night, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Only on Q95, the big station. Jacob is calling his children. Well, right, so we want oh, children, home.
Good evening, Dominica. A pleasant good evening to you. I hope you've had a great day. I hope you're having a wonderful week. It is always wonderful to be with you, to be in your company for another episode of Roots Connections on Q right here on Q95, the big station. Wherever you're joining us from, welcome back to our number one program for featuring the people, the organizations, and the new and ongoing projects which are geared towards moving Dominica forward, especially as it relates to securing financial opportunities for our brothers and sisters at home in Dominica and around the world. We continue to work to advance Dominica and to identify what role each one of us can play with this mission. As the world continues to change and evolve, we look at the changes we should be taking advantage of and what changes we need to make in order to move our country and our people forward. We all know that we face many battles in Dominica, but here on Roots Connections, we especially recognize that in order to effect the change we are seeking, Dominicans must be financially independent so that they can be free to make other important and independent decisions, including electing their government. So again, wherever you're joining us from, welcome to Roots Connections on Q. This is episode number 67 for today, March 27th, 2024, and I am your host, Simone Matthew. Today, we are exploring a topic which we should all be very concerned about as we continue to think about the future of our young people in Dominica and throughout the world. So today we are looking at how can we prepare the youth of Dominica for career opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, better known as STEM. So how are we preparing our young people for opportunities in STEM industries? We are very happy to be joined by Mrs. Marcia Stoute, who is an engineering instructor and the author of STEM Traction. We are also joined by Miss Joanne Prince, who is an educator, a radio personality, and she's going to also tell us more about the Marigot Enhancement Education movement. And we are also joined by Marcia's husband. We're happy to have him on board. And he is Mr. P. Anderson Stoute. He's the Director of Community Planning and Development. But before we get started this evening, we always like to take a minute to pray for our country, Dominica, and all the challenges and battles we face in so many areas. And this evening in particular, I pray for my own family because we just buried our uncle, Reginald Shillingford. Today, he lived to the ripe age of 90. So we are happy that he lived a very fruitful and productive life, and we laid him to rest today. So may his soul rest in peace. And as always, it is great to be here with you. So let us give a warm welcome to our guests on the panel this evening as they tell us a little bit about who they are and any introductory comments they would like to share at this point. So I will go ahead and start with you, Marcia. And before I do, let me also just remember to thank Ava Lugay out there in Houston, Texas. She was the one who brought Marcia to my attention, and then Marcia kind of just put the panel together for me. So thank you for that. And I always say, you know, we do not do these programs and these projects together. So I'm always grateful for everyone who supports this program in one way or the other. So Marcia, great to meet you, and tell us a little bit about you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marcia Stoute. I would like to say good evening to everyone tuning in. in Dominica and across the globe. Um, I am an engineering instructor at HBCU here in Houston, Texas. I am teaching in the area of civil engineering, particularly in transportation engineering, materials engineering, geotechnical engineering, as well as building construction. I have been the host of summer programs in the STEM area in early engineering education for the past 17 years. Have been hosting programs and been funded by the Department of Defense, as well as other entities. And so it is a pleasure to be here this evening to tell you guys about STEM, how we can get our young ladies into STEM, and how STEM has benefited me and my family since I've been in.
Yes, thank you very much, Marcia. And I'm sure Anderson will not mind if we continue with the ladies first. So, Joanne, please tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. Good night to you, your guest, and the listeners all over in Dominica and across the diaspora everywhere. Tune into Roots Connection tonight on Q. My name is Joanne Prince, and I am an educator, a special, let me say, I've been working in special education for a number of years, among other things. I am from the community of Marigat, where we are also involved in an education program. So it's an honor, a pleasure, a privilege for the opportunity to be on with you tonight as we delve into STEM, technology, and education.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for being here. And let's go over to Anderson.
Thank you, Simone. Thanks for the invitation as well. And thanks to all of the listeners out there. My name is Anderson Stoute. I am from Dominica. I am from the village of Sansouver. Just want to kind of start from back home so everybody understand my connection and my roots. I actually attended the Sansouver Primary School and St. Mary's Academy and Clifton Dupinick College at the time. I think that has changed now, but back in the days when I attended college in Dominica, it was called Clifton Dupinick College. So I do have an anchor and a base from back home in Dominica. I worked also at Sansouver Primary School, Castlebrook Secondary School, and Barclays, which was then bought over by First Caribbean International Bank, which I think is no longer operational in Dominica right now. So that kind of connects my history and my time back on the island, back at home. Definitely enjoyable moments. Right now, in all truthfulness, I'm really a support individual tonight. But at the same time, I will use my experiences here to tie it back to the great work that my wife is doing in STEM and how I continue to support and ensure that she has the encouragement to do that work. I've held various positions in the United States. Currently, I am the Director for Community Planning and Development for the United States Government of Housing and Urban Development. I oversee the states of Nebraska and Iowa. I've held positions in different cities as well at Deputy Assistant Director levels and things of that nature. We're going to explore those and how they connect back to the work Marcia do as we move along. But that gives you an introduction of who I am and what I've done over the years.
Yeah, and I have to tell you guys, just listening to your introductions, it just reminds me of why I get so excited to do this program every second and fourth Wednesday, because we have so many Dominicans who have such great expertise and who are ready to give back to our country, Dominica. So I'm always very happy to engage with folks like you who are ready to give back and are doing so in so many ways. So again, welcome to Roots Connections. We continue to work to position Dominica to take advantage of the benefits of a world where change is the only constant. As always, we are grateful to you, our audience, whether you're listening to us on the radio or you're listening via YouTube and Facebook. And I see Facebook here quickly coming in. So come on in. So on Facebook, you will definitely want to either watch on Facebook or on YouTube, because we're going to be sharing a very important resource to get our children into STEM education and to get them into those lucrative jobs that comes with an education in STEM. So on Facebook, you can join us on Q95 FM radio or on Push Past 10. And on YouTube, you can simply type in Q95 FM radio. So again, Q95 FM radio on Facebook and YouTube, and Push Past 10 on Facebook. So we are looking forward to engaging with you. Don't forget to share the live, click the notification button if you're on Facebook, so you will never miss an episode of Roots Connections and all the other wonderful programs that we bring you. We remain grateful to Mr. G and the Q95 family for the opportunity to come together to tap into our human resources, our Dominican experts, and to begin that process of reversing the brain drain that has plagued Dominica and the Caribbean region for many, many years. We also say good evening to DJ Shan, who will take the calls in a little while, and to Sherwin Norris. And we also want to keep in mind and in our prayers, Mr. Lambert Charles, who is normally the one on the console taking our calls, but as we know, he has been hospitalized. So we wish him a speedy recovery, a return back to health, so he can continue to enjoy life and continue making his contribution to Dominica. So again, if you're just joining us, this is Roots Connections on Q, and today we are discussing how we're preparing the youth of Dominica for career opportunities, lucrative career opportunities, I might add, in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And we are going to take a very holistic approach to this discussion. So we are going to look at STEM, but in addition, we are also going to look at what is getting in the way of our young people pursuing these very lucrative career fields, including the mindset that some of us as parents have, which may be getting in the way of, and we're also going to look at the state of the family, the home environments, which may be serving as a disadvantage to our children. So as you can tell, we have a very packed program for you this evening. So let's go ahead and invite our guest into the conversation. And we will begin with you, Marcia, as you tell us a little bit more about your professional background, your training, and everything that brought you to where you are today.
Okay, so I went to high school in Dominica. I did 1 year at St. Andrew's High School. Migrated to St. Martin, where I went to St. Dominic's and graduated from St. Dominic's. I, after a significant period of time, went on to college, got accepted to a few, but chose Texas Southern University. There, I was supposed to do a bachelor's in business, right, which is where we started in high school. These are the paths that you get put on. Within the first week of school, I realized that this was not the program for me, and I started along the path of exploring and trying to figure out where did I fit in. And so along that path, I came across engineering. Not only the program was a good program, but the funding opportunities as well. As a Caribbean national, international student at the time here in the US, going to school is quite pricey. Mm-hmm. And so I was looking for a program that had a funding component attached to it. And so that was civil engineering. So I started down the path of civil engineering, and it was awesome. You know, something about God placing you in situations that prepare you for where you should be. The math, I thought the math would be challenging. I was scared to death about that portion of it. But somehow I couldn't explain the process, but I knew how to work out problems. And so it made the classes easier. Anderson and I started together. We had some classes that crossed as well. Some of them I did better in than he did. Some of them that the other way around as well.
A little friendly competition never hurt no one.
Listen. And so I went on to graduate with a bachelor's in civil engineering technology at Texas Southern University. And then I pursued a master's. And so the master's had to be something that complemented it. Just trying to place myself right into where I wanted to be, something that complemented my degree, and that was urban planning and policy. And so from then, I went on to start adjunct teaching within the Department of Engineering, got training in geotechnical engineering with particular labs across the Houston area, and then later on became full-time instructor within an engineering department here in the Houston area in HBCU. And so in working with industry partners, and working with the university for the last 17 years, I then started writing grants. And so how do I give back? How do I embrace, right, women, minority women into this field in looking at the numbers? In every other education sector, primarily in medical, nurses and doctors, the disparity, right, between men and women in the profession is particularly equal, about 52 to 57% male versus female. In STEM, not so much. In STEM, it ranges from anywhere, I think, all the way back to the early 2000s, from 22% up to some agencies say 27%, right? And so if you think about what that means, it means that I am the only one, right, in an engineering class. Even now, today, as a teacher, I get so excited when I see fellow females in my class, because you're looking at a room of 60 students, 99.9% of them are male, right? And we as women make quite a significant impact. We are able to multitask. We are able to look at engineering problems and challenges from just a different perspective than men. It doesn't mean that we're better than, it just means that we each have something that we can bring to the table, right? I'm not even adding, being a Caribbean national, our heritage, our culture, right? The benefits that can be added just from that perspective has been amazing for me to see, and for everyone else. Within the university, there is Bahamians, right, and Africans, and just looking at some of the things that they are able to accomplish in this sector, right, it has been astronomical.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, we have so much to talk about. I can't wait to get started. But Joanne, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your professional background. And I know that you worked in social work and also in special education. But just kind of as we begin the conversation and you do your introduction, just tell us some of the concerns that you may see that we may, learn a lesson or two from in terms of your background in social work and special education.
Okay, well, sorry. First, let me apologize in the event that there's any interruption or anything. I'm in transition and just trying to get settled here. Okay, sure. Well, I started in South Florida as a social worker, and that is after graduating from, went to Florida Atlantic University, had a social psychology degree, then went on to Nova Southeastern University, had a degree in school guidance counseling. Then I worked as a social worker for the Florida Departments of Children and Family. And then I moved across to Texas and decided to get into education. And the part of education that I went into was special education, because from being a social worker, most of our cases came from the school. So I was curious to find out why is that. So there I was, and then I went on to get another degree. I completed a whole doctorate program, ABD, because I kind of really intentionally wanted to stay in the classroom because everything else was pushing you out in the office and I had many other things to do. Mm-hmm. So in accordance to living my life and being purposeful about what I was called to do, my first job, my principal said to me that I'm not just a teacher, it's my vocation. I was called for this because I was dealing with behavior. So I worked as behavior with my first teaching job. And I don't know, and I think it was my Dominican background and my strength and all of that. They thought I was so good, but I was like, where? I was like, I just know how our parents were with us, which trick you do, don't. And once you're breathing, you kind of know right from wrong. So that was all the techniques that I use to be to work in that area of special education. And then I went on to life skills with the different disabilities, learning disabilities, autistic kids, dyslexia, emotional disturbance. I did intellectual disability, dysgraphia. It's a whole bunch of stuff. And so I did that for years, and every time I tried to see something else I could do, I no, I can't. I stayed in there, and so I always end up loving being around the kids, and they love me, and we all act. It's special education. We have fun. I don't know about anything else, but we have fun, and so I stayed in that for a number of years. And then Marcia brought me to Houston, and I continue into special education. And I did a lot of other things behind the scene. I consider myself to be a producer. I don't really talk much about, I talk a lot, but I don't really talk about what I do. And so, like, I was pulled here tonight and to talk about one of the things that I'm doing. And so that's basically it, working with the kids. And just, I love kids. So whether it's social work, whether it's wherever, that's my passion. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah, and thank you for that, Joanne. And we have a lot to unpack just in what you just said, because, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. And guys on Facebook and YouTube, please post the comments, because sometimes I don't see if you don't post the comments. So if you want to be acknowledged during the program, Sandra Green, thank you for that lovely comment. Good evening to your guests. Looking forward to yet another awesome program tonight. So thank you for that. So guys, if you would like to be acknowledged during this program, please go ahead and post the comments on Facebook and YouTube. And yes, Joanne, and I don't claim to be an expert on everything Dominican, but anyone can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But do we have special education in Dominica? Because I know that one of the reasons that many of our students do not get to pursue opportunities such as the ones we are talking about this evening is because they do not have the tools that addresses their particular educational concerns. And as far as I know, there's no special education programs in Dominica, but anyone can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong as I go over to Anderson. I want to hear more about what you do, because I think the home and the community is so integral to everything we're talking about today. And I also want us to start talking about that 17 years grant writing summer school program that you have been very supportive of Marcia in doing. So let's begin having that conversation.
So, Simone, what I will say before we move into me talking a little more about what I do and how I get into my educational background, special education, I know that's Joanne's area of expertise, and I'll leave it for her because that's her zone, not mine. But one thing I do want to acknowledge, which is slightly different, but I think it's important. Whether it's unfortunate or fortunate, I did not pass common entrance growing up. And back then, one of the options that was available to individuals like me was what was referred to as JSP,
Yep.
in the secondary program. And it was more of a trades related or a hands-on related program. And I remembered back in grade 7 around the time when you see common entrance, and that's when you transition from primary school to high school. School really was nothing that I was too concerned about or worried about. And I remembered when I failed the common entrance and the option was to go to the junior secondary program. I remembered my mom and dad was having a conversation once. They weren't aware that I was in the house and I was hearing them. But my mom was asking my dad, what are we going to do with him?
Wow.
Meaning that, he didn't pass common entrance. He will not be going to high school. And my father, who was a fisherman, was very bold in his statement. Well, he'll be a fisherman like his dad and his granddad before him. And that was the paradigm shift in my whole experience, because I know I was not born to be a fisherman. I've done it throughout my growing up with my dad, and it's not something, yes, for just going out and having fun and enjoying spending time with my dad, yes, but not as a lifestyle. And so I say this to say slightly different, but touching back on the special education, you need to reach individuals where the needs are. Because if that program was not available for me, I would probably be a fisherman like my dad and his dad before him. And I would not have had the opportunities that I have today. And so I think it's important to have and to provide opportunities and access to individuals at every level. So just kind of wanted to touch on that.
Right. Very well said.
I won't be justified, Simone, if I don't start in Dominica when I talk about how I end up doing my degree. And so I want to be respectful to you and our listening audience, because I'm not sure how much time do we have, because sometimes I can talk a little bit. So
that's okay. I'm enjoying the conversation, so feel free.
Marcia will pinch him.
Marcia will nudge you.
So long story short, and I'll try to synopsize as much as I can. But long story short, when I met my wife back in Dominica back in the days, I think one of the things that was constant on my mind, I used to work at the bank back then, was that I was going to America to get a degree. And my mom had a friend in Dominica who's going to help me to get to America to get a degree. And so I think that was my tune or my song. And I think it kind of got old after a while, because I was kind of saying the same thing for about 3 to 4 years. I guess procrastination is the word right there. Always had that vision, that ambition to do better. To further my education, always speak about it, but never do anything about it. And I can never forget as long as I live. I remember one day, it was in October. My not my wife then, we got married when we got to the US, but Marcia, whom I'd been with for about 3 years back then, she sat me down like, we need to have a conversation. And then the extent of the conversation was, well, I reached out to your mom friends in the US. I got you accepted into Texas Southern University. I got you on I-20, which is what actually gives you the opportunity to go to Barbados to get your visa. I purchased a ticket to go to Barbados. I booked your hotel so you can go to your visa appointment. And then I purchased a ticket for you to go to the US in December. So that's October, November, I'm going to Barbados. December, I'm going to the US to go to school. I had no part in this conversation. Now, I'm not sure what my response was supposed to be to that kind of she taking on herself to actually make those decisions on behalf of me. I know I've been saying it. I know I was interested, but I was never at that level. And I remember sitting and thinking about, like, I need time to process this. And then, so I think it took me a few days to come around to, okay, well, that's probably not a bad decision. That's something I really want. And I think that's a good opportunity, considering you've made all the sacrifices, do all the investments. Probably I should take that opportunity. And so we finally start talking about it seriously. And I think the one thing that she did not probably consider, or we did not consider, was how was I going to pay for college? So everything was in motion, except that there was no funding in place to pay for college. And I remember it was one of the hardest decisions that I made back then. We lived together in a small apartment. And so we was like, okay, we are going to sell everything we own. And whatever funds that we get, that's going to be your first semester. And then you're going to have to figure it out when you get to the US. And so I ended up in the US with the clothes on my back, sufficient money to cover my schooling for one semester, and I was supposed to figure it out. And I remember this was very scary, being in a different country, being in a place that's unknown to you. The culture is different, and you were supposed to do this and be this brave person in this whole new world. And to make it even more challenging, when we had this conversation, the plan was she would come and meet me 1 year later. That would give me sufficient time to get acclimated, figure out how the system works over here, get a baseline, and then I can bring her. A month after I got here, she is reaching out to me. It's time for her to come here. And I was like, I haven't even figured things out, but I'm going to just fast forward for a second. So I got here. And so she signed me up to the business administration because that's what my passion was back then. I had no idea what STEM was or what engineering was and anything in the science field. And I remember getting to Texas Southern University. And as I started exploring, I remember one of the introduction classes we did, they kind of shared with us, yes, I know this is what you signed up to come to do. But now is a good time to take an introspective look at where do you want to be? Where have you been? And is this the right program for you? And I remember taking a look back at when I worked in Dominica at the bank, how I was always in an office. 9 to 5, I was in the office. There was no room to go anywhere. It was banking. And I wished I had an opportunity to balance being in the office and being in the outdoors. And so as I started exploring options, engineering kind of opened up that opportunity because I could be in the office, but I could also be in the field where I monitor the projects and the individuals who doing the work. And so I kind of leaned in that area. I ended up pursuing construction technology at the time with a specialization in construction management. So that's what my first degree is in. And then I moved on to do a master's in transportation planning and management. So that kind of covers my background and how I end up in the field that I am. It was never my intent to do construction technology with a specialization in construction management. It was my plan to do business administration. But after getting here, I realized that there were opportunities in the fields of technology and in the STEM area. And I can tell you, I was so excited that I made that shift.
Right. And let me just jump in real quick, Anderson, because I don't want to overlook that story you just shared with us because it is such a powerful story. First of all, it shows the love that Marcia truly has for you. And second of all, it sort of reflects who we are as Dominicans because we all have a Marcia and Anderson story. We all have the story of how we had a vision for ourselves when we saw what was available to us in Dominica. And there's nothing wrong with being a fisherman. It's quite a noble career. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. So your father and his father before him had noble careers, and they were content with being fishermen. It was fishermen. It was not for you, and you longed to pursue a different career opportunity. And so many of us share your story of growing up in Dominica, having no resources, coming from humble backgrounds, and having that support system, that one or two persons who said, you know what, I see the potential in you and I'm going to invest in you. So I don't want us to overlook how important what you just talked about was. So go ahead and continue what you were going to say, and then we're going to start talking about the 17-year program. But I'm truly enjoying the conversation.
That's fine, Simone. We can transition that way. I don't
Yes.
monopolize the discussion. I'm certainly sure there'll be other opportunities for me to continue.
Yes, absolutely. So tell us about the summer program, Marcia, and then Joanne, I'm going to come to you.
In 2007, my chair told me that there was funding to do a summer program sponsored by two agencies, THECB, Texas Higher Education Board, and the Department of Defense, except they didn't know how to do the summer program. And I was like, I could do it. And so we're talking end of semester, we're in May. And the program starts in June. And there are two programs. There are no kids signed up, nothing. I got it. He's like, are you sure? Have you done this before? I was like, no, but I can do it because I don't know yet, but I will know how to do it. And so I got in my car and started going to schools, telling them about the program, started recruiting, and I made the numbers. I hired the teachers, figured out the curriculum, and we got started. And that is the beginning. And so I have applied for every year for different funding sources to do this program, pre-college engineering program. So in this program, we introduce high schoolers to different STEM careers, not just one, but lots of different STEM careers. So then they can make an educated decision on where they want to end up in life. And not just that, what are the tools that you need to get started? So in high school, in the capacity that you are, how can you get started now on that path? And so the program was born from then. We've served over 1,000 students with this program. Most of them have ended up at MIT and all those other major universities. Some of them have their doctorate, right? While I am slow walking mines. But just to provide the opportunity so they know something else, because most of these children had never heard of STEM. They did not know what STEM was. They were underrepresented, underfunded. They are from Title I schools, and Joanne could tell you a little bit more about Title I schools. They're economically disadvantaged. The percentage of special education in those schools are pretty high. And so we took those kids in and we fed them for the summer, gave them a stipend to buy the supplies they needed to start school the following year. And so that went on for 17 years. And I started thinking, how do I reach a larger body of students? And so from then, this book was born. It's STEM Traction, A Student's Guide to Engineering Careers. And so within this book, I had to sit down and decide what was I going to put in here? What was the pivotal information that they need to know right now, right? And how early can they start? Not only that, we are parents to 2+1 kids. So we have an 11-year-old and we have an 8-year-old set of twins. Ooh. So my 11-year-old Aria, she, from the minute she could speak, she wants to be an astronaut. And so we started trying to decide, how do we get Aria to where she said she wants to be? How do we expose her? Where do we start? And in starting to research, looking at all the different information that was available for Aria's age group. And so Aria is currently in 5th grade, testing at 9th grade level in math and sciences, in math and English, math and reading. How do I get her the resources that she needs to be an astronaut or aerospace engineer, right? And so I searched and it wasn't there. So this was born. And
yes,
so,
and I want us to take a nice long discussion on the book, but let's just hold off on it for just 1 minute, because I'm always thinking, how can we take opportunities to Dominica? So now I'm wondering if that summer project is something that can be replicated in Dominica. And then I want to come to Joanne, because I want her to tell us about the Marigot Education Enhancement Movement, because that too is introducing children to technology and interactive learning. So let's have that conversation about if a summer program such as the one that you do, Marcia, is it feasible for Dominica, and what might it take to have that program available to young people in Dominica? Because the beauty of technology right now is many of our young people can work with companies overseas, even living in Dominica, because of all the tools and resources that are now available through technology. So what are your thoughts? Do you think that is a program that would work and would be feasible for Dominica?
So COVID taught us many things, right?
Yes.
A lot of things that we didn't know before. COVID happened in March of 20. We had a program that was supposed to start in that June. And so we're sitting home, the country shut down, trying to figure out how do we do it. And so we found a platform. And so we were able to put it on a platform, and we mailed the packages to the students' homes all over the US, all over Houston, of the items that we needed to do the hands-on component. Because what is
Antigua.
including
Antigua.
Oh, no. Oh, Antigua. So why not Dominica?
Well, we had an Antiguan that was very interested, and Joanne knew the parents, and he heard about the program, and he was like, I want to be a medical doctor, a surgeon, but there are aspects of engineering that's very helpful that I'd like to get in on. And with his spotty internet and all, he was there every single day on task. He just jumped right in. And so, yes, the program can be done. We have created STEM Traction, an early engineering education company that we can deliver this program virtually. We can deliver this program over a summer. We can deliver components of the program over a weekend in person, but virtual, definitely.
Right. I'm just trying to think of what steps it would take to get this through the Ministry of Education, because truth be told, we all know how quickly things move in Dominica. I'm being sarcastic.
Well, God always places things at the right time.
Right.
And so whenever it happens, it will be the right time because there is the need.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joanne, tell us a little bit more about the Marigot Education Enhancement Program and what you guys are doing with technology. And if anybody joined us later and we keep talking about STEM, and you're not sure what we're referring to, it is the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math, which pay very, very well and should be opportunities for our young people in Dominica. So careers in these fields can be very lucrative. And we're talking about how we can get our Dominican young people interested and involved in these areas of, in this particular field. So Joanne, over to you.
Okay, well, first, let me tell you, that student that she tapped into Antigua, that year they built a drone and a smart watch.
Wow.
Yes, they did that. And he was normally a shy kid, but that program, I think, helped with social skills as well. Yes, and also I have 3 friends who are engineers, and they are from the GSP program. Matter of fact, a lot of my friends are engineers, I could count. Yes, so it tells me that the GSP program, they went into high school through 3rd form. So in my field of special education, that means they were slow learners.
Yes.
They learn differently. So how is it that they did not pass the common entrance exam, but today, look at Anderson, working in the federal government as an engineer. So it's a lot that can be said. I mean, special education is such a wide topic. Just the other day, I had a conversation with somebody, and they were saying they don't think we had special education children growing up. I said, absolutely, we did.
Of course we did.
I was a special education student.
Yeah, and so was I. I only got a pass in the common entrance.
Well, I passed, but then my hyperactivity, my demerits, and my detention are scars that I was a special ed student.
Yeah.
And so I really enjoy that. So once you understand children, for instance, when I started learning about dyslexia, I'm saying, sometimes we would laugh at students who probably had a book upside down. But we don't know, we call them dunce. The student had the book upside down because they cannot see the letter because of some disability that they have. So we've made fun of them. We have students who have a writing disability called dysgraphia, and we make fun of them because they write weird. So it did exist, it's just that it wasn't identified and it wasn't recognized. As far as special education, I noticed that the Caribbean is taking a very keen interest in developing special education. Some Eastern Caribbean islands, they do have special education schools and program. Right now, I'm in a transition where I will be working with one school for a while in special education. And so, fast forward and everything special education, that's a topic by itself. The Marigot Education Enhancement Movement. Over the years, we have always been doing things, donating. Everybody from the diaspora, as long as they can, always send in a barrel here, a box here, a book here, and just sending stuff, donating stuff. But there was no such organized group that would make it successful or have an effect that the morale of the students and the teachers would be enhanced. And so how did we come about that? Miss Sandra Green from Marigot, yes, she got me into this where they were adopting a classroom. So she got all her former students to adopt one of the classrooms. And having a conversation, I'm always ready to do something. Like I said, we do a lot of things behind the scene. And so I decided to adopt the common entrance class. And we adopt the class and the teacher. So every student and the teacher and whatever they need for the students to be successful. And so all the grades, they were adopted. And knowing me and where I come from, I have to do it bigger and than everybody else. That's me. I just do it bigger. So I tell Sandra, well, I'm a special education teacher, and we are living in the times that technology is what matters. Lecturing does not work. Lecturing is ancient. Children are hyper. They have a cell phone from they were born. They have the iPad, whatever. And you're talking to them to learn. And sitting there with unidentified special, I would say, learning disabilities, and you're talking to them. Well, their learning style is not auditory. The learning style is kinesthetic, is movement, tactile, or visual. So you're talking to somebody and they tune you out. So we said, we're going to tap into technology. And so, of course, she's very excited. Oh my God, she's excited, Miss Green. And so we ended up buying the first smart board for the grade 6 class. And we raised the fund. The Stoutes helped as well, our fellow diasporan friends. I called my friends. I said, listen, I'm doing this. And my friends know when I call them for money, they better give. As a matter of fact, they don't. They just say, they just send. I don't have to persuade. They know that. They can type it in there. And so we did that, and we sent it to Marigot. So that was placed in the 6th grade classroom. And so we continued and we developed into a program that, hey, we saw the students that they were excited, the teachers excited. One summer they went to the school. I stayed on the phone and we video and we conference and talked about how are we going to engage students. We are talking about tapping into the different learning styles of the student because we want all the students to be successful. So we did that, and that went on, and we ended up creating a mission that we're going big with this. And Miss Green and myself, we said, the mission is to inspire and empower students and teachers of the WSSS, Afuawi Village, through teaching and learning that is fun and engaging, using multisensory and interactive activities that aligns with 21st century approaches and tools in the classroom. So just this here tells us we have to tap into every learning style of every child in that classroom. And we want it by extension, all the classroom. So we started off, and when I said then we were creating the name and I said project, Ms. Green said, no, it's movement. We're changing everything. So that's where we're as a movement, and we are asking people to come on board, especially our folks in the diaspora. And one of the things I always tell my students, I said, listen, I'm getting old. And in my community, I want to know that the people who are going to fill my prescription, the people who are going to take care of anything can read and write and have some sense. So we figure, let us invest in our community. Let us invest in our children, because that's where they're going to come right back. We want them to be smart in whatever way. Like Andy was saying, his father wanted him to be a fisherman. So if you're going to be a fisherman, we want you to be a best fisherman. So we'll have fisherman here, we'll have this here, whatever you want to do. Because some people do not want to go to college. You do not have to go to college. So that is what we are all about. The Marigot Education Enhancement Movement, using technology in education to enhance learning and tap into all the differentiated learning styles of the students.
Right, and thank you so much, Joanne, for that. And our conversation this evening is raising so many different questions in my mind. And of course, I'm open to the answers to this question from anyone who's familiar with the educational system in Dominica. But a question that Joanne's commentary just raised in my mind is, are we engaging students with different learning styles? Because as she just mentioned, there are different learning styles. So some children, they can sit down and you can lecture to them all day long and they will retain the information. Other students, especially younger students, it's more through kinesthetics. So what does that mean? Movement. So don't tell a child, the different parts of a flower. You have to literally take the flower and show the child. Some other students are auditory. So they learn by hearing, some students learn by seeing, some students are tactile, by feeling, by touching, by manipulating. So if anyone on the Facebook Live or anyone who wants to call in a little while can tell us if we are engaging our students with different learning styles in Dominica for the style that best suits their needs, so that they're better able to retain the information. But thank you so much, Joanne. And the other thing we have to think about, which Joanne also mentioned, is the fact that our children now are considered, what the term is digital natives. So our Children today are considered digital natives. And what is a digital native? Of course, Marcia can tell me more, but from my own understanding, it means that these are children who are born in a world where technology has always existed. So folks like us, me and Anderson that went to Sifokol instead of state college, we were not digital natives, right? We grew up where there was no technology in learning. There was simply a blackboard and a teacher lecturing to you. And that is all we knew. We knew books, we knew a blackboard, we need a teacher, we knew a library, and that is all we knew. But how are we taking advantage of all the technology that these kids are now submerged in, from their iPads to their laptops to their cell phones? That is the world that they live in. And we can criticize it as much as we want. It is not going to change the reality. So we have to embrace that technology and use it as a teaching and a learning tool for our young people, because again, they are living in a world where they're considered digital natives. They are natives of the digital world. Anderson and Marcia, let me come over here. I'm sure you guys have some comments. I see Anderson smiling away.
So what I just wanted to touch on something when you refer to learning styles. Marcia mentioned earlier that we did some programs together in college, which was kind of one of my more frustrating moments at college. So Marcia is what I consider to be naturally smart. And so Marcia learning style is we would be in the classroom, the teacher goes over the material and she pays attention and she knows exactly what was said. And then she will go the next day and they will be testing and she will get 95%. Well, if I go the next day without having to spend 5-6 hours in the night reviewing the information, I cannot match up to a grade. So we always get the same grades, and it was always frustrating because I would be up 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and she'd be doing her thing, whatever the case is. And then we go into testing next day and we get similar grades. And it was just difficult for me to deal with that when we were in programs. As a matter of fact, we had this philosopher, well, she had, not me. Our professors did not even know that we were married in college because she refused.
Couldn't claim him, could not.
Which was this funny thing on campus because nobody knew we were married because she would be concealing the fact. There was this one professor, and I always tell her I thought that she was given preferential treatment because I just don't understand how I spend all night studying and we get the same grades. But just thought I would throw that in there.
Well, Anderson, many of us are you, because I'm you. I'm certainly not a Marcia. I have to work and I have to work and I have to study and restudy for 5 hours. But again, it comes back to learning styles, and maybe there's another way. Me and you, but we were never diagnosed, so we don't know what particular learning style might learn.
Exactly.
So if I hear it, I see it, I read it, say it out loud, I reinforce it through all my senses, and it's with me always. And so if we're having a conversation next year about something we spoke about 20 years ago, I could jump right back in where we were. And I don't think he's liked it over the years because I remember. But it's all about figuring your learning style. Like Joanne said, you figure your learning style, you figure what works for you, and you go with it. And so I know that if I write it, I wrote it down, I saw it, I heard it, I said it, I have it. It's mine. Right?
Yeah, and I'm truly hoping that, the Ministry of Education and those in education can let us know, first of all, if these are approaches that are being used in Dominica. And if they're not, then that is something that needs to be looked into, because many times, again, we call students dunce, we call them foolish, we say you will never amount to anything. And the issue is not the student, the issue is us, because the child cannot help how they were made, how they were created, right? It is up to the adult to diagnose them, to ensure we're giving them the tools. Go ahead, Joanne.
Yes, I say you have to engage the heart and the mind. I worked at an alternative schools for about 7 years, and an alternative schools is a school for behavioral children. So every child, everyone in that school had some infraction that they did, something bad, whether they're in the gang, whether they were fighting, whether they were drinking, whatever. And so They would come to school, and you have the bad boys in school, and they would give problems in some classes. And then there was this one class that this group of boys they were in, and the teacher, remember this lady, she was in her 60s, she's from the Philippines, and every child had a tablet, and she had the game on the smart board. They were doing review. So on English that they don't like. They don't like to read, they don't like to write. But once you put it in a game format, they were competing. And they always want to continue. What they didn't realize is that she was challenging them to learn, and they loved it. And when the game was over, they wanted to do it again. It wasn't a game with Pac-Man or anything like that. It was reading, vocabulary, sentence structures, parts of speech, and all of that. So you have to tap into, how do you engage these kids? They are behavior kids. And I'm not talking about a kid who cussed a teacher, nothing like that. I'm talking about kids who came from jail, kids who are in gangs, kids who steal cars and don't want anything to do with school because everybody always tell them that they can't. And they come from the environment that they can't. But when you bring them in school, we are change agent. That's what we are there for. We have to show an interest in them, a vested interest in them, and show them that they are able to learn. So I saw that happen. I witnessed this, and so I used some of that strategies from that teacher. And so when I meet up with Sandra and we say, you know what, we are going to make a difference for our children, and that we are going to help them get as many tablets, laptops, whatever they need. And so we asking the folks from our communities, and I tell them, listen, we have to be accountable for our children. We want to see them grow up. They're going to be there for us, but what are we planting in them now that we can reap later? So that is the whole idea of making a difference for these children and helping the teachers. We want to help all of them. We will take the time. I will call, I will answer, I will return the call. Whatever you need. If you ask me whatever we can, I say, hey, we need this for this teacher to do this project, we're going to get it. And so that's all we really asking for, people to come on board and help. And every little bit, you don't have to be rich or millionaire to help a child. You just have to have the interest to do it, and it happens, because so far we've done 2 and we are working on 2 more.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Anderson.
Simone, what I'll use an example from the work that I do now, my experience, my background actually. As we talk about options, back to learning styles and special education. One thing I think I've come to realize in my experience with the work that I do is options is important. It's important to give people options. So I will use an example for when I worked at the city of Houston. I was the Deputy Assistant Director over a program called Single Family Division in the Housing and Community Development Department. And I had the responsibility and oversight for 12 programs, all of which provided single family affordable houses to low income individuals. So that's all we did, ensure that individuals had a home to live. And we had 12 options available to the public. There was a box that everybody could fit in that you could have housing. And I remember, and while I was there, one of the programs that was added on my watch was called Home by Your Choice program. And what the Home by Your Choice program was you give individuals a house, but they really didn't own the land the house was on. They actually owned the improvement, but not the land. The land was owned by a trust. And the justification for that option was, I remember we had a lot of stark opposition from council members and individuals when we introduced this, because the whole premise was you aren't creating generational wealth, you're perpetuating the notion of not giving people ownership of what belongs to them. But the notion behind that program was you had individuals who'd spend 60 years living in apartments, and what they knew was a landlord changing a light bulb. Yep. And they don't know how to do regular maintenance. You put somebody like that in ownership of a home. We literally had a program called Home by Assistance program where we actually give people $35,000 towards down payment and closing assistance for a home. And what we find is in that program, we had people literally calling us to come and change off light bulbs, which wasn't part of the responsibility. But because of the indoctrination on the fact that this is what they were used to for all the years, so one size doesn't fit all, and that's when we introduced the program. So the land trust owned the land, and they owned the maintenance components of the program, and the individual owned their home. So you still had somebody that services that need. All of this to say, I believe options is always important.
Yeah, absolutely. And normally, guys, we take phone calls at 9, but I really want us to get into this very important tool. So again, if you're listening via the radio, you might want to jump on YouTube at this point, Q95 FM radio. If you're not on Facebook, and if you're on Facebook, you can join us Q95 FM radio as well as Push Past 10, because I want Marcia now to continue telling us about this very important tool called STEM Traction and what it entails. So Marcia, go ahead, take it away.
Okay,
And you
so
can show us
this
the book while you're talking.
A Student's Guide to Engineering Careers can be found everywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Millions, and Walmart. So you can get it there. You can go ahead and take a look right now or when we get off the program. It's all about choices. What choices are we giving our students? What choices are we giving them in terms of their career? Are we setting them up at the beginning, not at the end? Because at the end is hard. And I teach at a college level. So, every student that falls through the cracks at Joanne level gets transferred to me at some point, right? How do we turn that around? How do we get them to the proficiency of reading and writing and math where they need to be? And that is hard. And so many students who flunk out of college, who quit, it's not because they want to, it's because it's difficult. And so as parents, as a mother of 3 young children who are curious, so many questions all the time. How can we set them up right now for everything that they need to know, right? What are the jobs in engineering, right? What do they produce, right? What are some historical landmarks in that area? Right?
What are the salaries?
What are the salaries? What is the percentage that I'll have a job, after I go through this 4-year program, right? Not only that, are there people in that sector that looks like me, right? Where do I fit in? What do I need to learn right now, right? If I wanted to be a civil engineer, electrical engineer, computer engineer, what do I need to do right now? Placed everything in here.
Yeah, right? and I have to say, Marcia, very well done. I like the representation in this book, the minorities that you show, the young minority children that you chose to include in the book. And you talk about the different fields: chemical engineering, civil engineering, mechanical engineering. But what stood out for me is the engineerings that are relevant to Dominica. So we talk about agriculture. We talk about computer science. We talk about health and safety. I didn't even know there was something called health and safety in engineering. So there are so many fields in this book that is relevant to us in Dominica. And the other thing we have to talk about, but we'll go to the phones before we do, is the lack of representation of women and minorities in these fields. Because when I look at the different numbers that you've included, and you see some of the fields is 27% male, then you look at the percentage for minorities and it's like 5%. It's alarming. It's alarming because this is the way of the world. This is the direction that the world is going into. But yet we see such a lack of representation from people who look like us. So anything else you want to tell us about the book, Marcia, before we go to take the phone calls?
What I do want to say is, if you're not sure where to start, if you didn't get educated, if you don't know where to start, you do not have access to the resources that maybe the next person have access to. It's all contained in this book. It has 17 years of experience. I've done this for quite a while with the best resources. It is Department of Defense, sponsored by the United States. It is held at university level. I have access to faculties across the board in each sector. Not only that, industry partners. So the program included industry partners who could share their stories with you and tell you how they came along, how they ended up where they end up. And so I would beseech you, if you want your child to accomplish more than you did, which is our purpose on this earth, that our children end up further than we got to, it's all contained in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. And I'm actually typing the name of the book in the comment section. So if you're listening on the radio, what you would like, you would type in Amazon, since I'm sure most people will want to order it online, is STEM, STEM, and then the word traction, TRACTION. So keep your pen and paper handy. I will repeat the name again. So again, STEMTRACTION. So if you're looking to give your children a head start, you want your children to have a lucrative job in the future, engineering is the way to go. And later in the program, I also want to talk about AI, the role that AI is playing. And if we don't remember anything from this program tonight, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, we have to stop criticizing our children and their electronics. I'm looking here, social media is one of the options. Our kids are always on social media, whether they're doing the latest TikTok challenge, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube, they're on Instagram. Those are business opportunities. So we have to, as parents and adults, educate ourselves. So instead of complaining that our children are always on social media, they're always on their tablets, they're always on their iPhones, it should be a light bulb moment in our minds to say, how can I engage this child? What apps can I find for this child to engage them so that they can use these in productive ways that will educate them, that will place them at the forefront of being in a career where it can be lucrative. They might be able to buy us a house. Who knows? Right, Anderson, you look like you want to say something.
Simone, that's so interesting. So our older daughter came home today from a book that she borrowed from the library called Coding. And here she is with her siblings. They sat, each of them have their tablets. And next thing my wife and I know, they are bringing us little videos that they actually made themselves. They coded them. And they actually are doing things. One of them, I think, was singing or dancing. I can't remember what the others were doing. But to your point, we have to encourage and elevate those kids. Now, I do understand that there are challenges to the exposure to social media if there aren't safety parameters or if there aren't boundaries in place. But what we have to figure out is what is the healthy or the delicate balance between the time they spend on those and what they actually do during those time they spend on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot more to talk about. We have to talk about minorities and girls. Why don't we see more representation in the fields of engineering? But let us go over to the studio. Sean, I hope you're still with us so we can give out the phone numbers so you can call in and continue to post on YouTube and Facebook, because I am coming now to take your comments. So Sean, are you with us?
There's Simon.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Roots Connection and Q. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. And if you're calling from the overseas line, 305-432-9624. All right, so let me just run the numbers again. The numbers are 449-3095, 449-3096, 449-3097, 616-4257. And if you're calling from overseas, 305-432-9624.
Yes, and Sean, just let me know if a call is coming in, but let us make sure we acknowledge our audience on Facebook and YouTube as well. Carl Kofi James, blessed evening as always. Petra Carbon George, always great to see you. Alista Irish, always locked in. Hey, neighbor, thank you for being here. Jennifer Coffey, I think you meant good evening. Jennifer, good evening. Jacksonville, Florida is looking. Owen Prosper, always great to have you on. Good evening, Patriotic Family. I'm locked as usual. Sandra Green, good evening to your guests. Looking forward to yet another awesome program. Sherlon Gist, what's up, my Houston people? Hey, Houston is in the house. Alpha Plus says, good evening, team. Very pleased with this panel. Looking forward to learning a lot. Dave Bertrand, working with kids with special education needs can be challenging, but rewarding, especially when you get positive results. Valerie Joseph, Joe, congratulations. I'm listening. Good program, everyone. Alfred Inches, wow. Sandra Green, the removal of the JSP program in the school system in Dominica has definitely left a major void in the skill set of our youth. Jennifer Coffey says, good evening. Yeah, she just corrected herself. Veronica Pascal, nice to see you. Delia Newton says, yes, great conversation. Sandra says, Simone, we are on the same wavelength. I have been thinking the same thing. How do we get that program into Dominica? Marigot Education Enhancement Movement is ready to work with you. Wow, I'm very happy to hear that, Sandra. So we need to have this conversation and figure out a way to get it there. Matilda Jolly is here. Jess Verville, good evening. Let's see. Crispin Shillingford, thank you for being here. Love the idea. Joanne, good night to everyone on the panel. Very great program. Alfred Inches, the teacher didn't help in that area either. I remember wanting to do computer science in high school and was denied the opportunity because they didn't think I qualified. That's a holdback. Wow, that's truly sad. And Nick Thea, the blackboard is no longer. Technology is moving, and education institutions have to get on board to prepare students for the global market. Students need individualized learning approaches. Thank you so much. And Nick says, thank you, Joanne, Marcia Anderson, and Dr. Matthew. Teacher Merle, thank you for being here, Teacher Merle. And Teacher Merle says, it is sad how little accommodation has been made for children with disability. Truly sad, Teacher Merle. Good to see and hear you, Andy. That's from Teacher Merle. Let's see who else we have.
Okay, Dr. Simone, I see we have our first call.
Yes, go ahead.
Q95, hello, good night. On the local line, hello, good night. Roots Connection.
Good evening to all the listeners of this great program.
Good evening.
I'm happy to be able to sit here out of the studio and listen to what's going on. And I'm impressed to the moon.
Thank you.
To see Joanne, that's my fellow villager, and of course the couple there, and of course Simon, to see you from this angle. I'm a little better. I'm home now. I just wanted to let you know that is a tremendously great program, and may this not stop at all. May it continues, because my kids are grown, but I have relatives who have children of special needs. So thank you very much for doing this tonight. It is, again, I repeat, it's a great program. By the way, my name is Lambert Charles.
Yes, Lambie, I was just about to acknowledge you. I was just about to say, I'm guessing this is Lambie calling. Oh my God, Lambie, it's so wonderful to hear your voice. How are you doing?
I'm doing much better. I was discharged late yesterday afternoon. I'm home now. I've been addressed and taken care of by my home special nurse, and she's doing a great job.
Yes, thank you. Well, God bless you and stay healthy. We long to see you again.
Yes, you will. God has been very good to us.
Yes, thank you, Lambie. So take care of yourself.
All the best. Good night.
All right, thank you. Yes, Sean, you let us know if we have any other calls coming in. And we have some folks, Alfred Inches and Asana Polis, who went ahead and posted the link. So again, if you're looking for the book, you want to inspire young people, take this name down, STEMTRACTION, STEM Traction, a student's guide to engineering careers, which I'm just going to be blunt, it's where the money is, right? So if you're looking to help your children be successful in their careers, that is where the direction you want to put them into. So guys, any comments based on what folks on Facebook and YouTube are saying?
Well, just about the book, and we are promoting STEM, and we're asking for young people, because you'll find that a lot of people going to college and they want to do business, doctor, or lawyer.
Mhm.
And I think the fields are oversaturated with that kind. So somebody's listening and they're wishing, or people are liking the program and so on. How many people will go out tonight and look at the book, buy the book, even if you don't have children or don't have children in school, you can buy the book for somebody. And like, I'm special ed in every way. So I'm telling you, I'm drawn towards the illustrations in the book. And I love all the different graphics, the pictures in there. It's inviting. Your child will like it. It's not a book that you're just going to read, and the words and all of this. You can look at the pictures, they can have fun with it. You, the parents, can have fun with the child, showing them the book, and that the option is there to become an engineer. Like Marcia said, her daughter wants to be an astronaut, or something in aerospace, but it has to be instilled in them and in the surrounding from a very beginning. So that is how they first get introduced to it. So if the book, look for the book, buy the book, order the book, give the book to somebody, and we can do that. This is how we support our community. And so we are made to be change agents. We didn't just go to school for ourselves to be that, to buy a big house and to buy a fancy car. We want to keep it rolling. And so I was looking at a story of a child that a teacher impacted, and that one child life was changed, went on and did something positive. And so in that, as a teacher, as a special education teacher, you never know who you're impacting. Sometimes you don't even think that this child is listening. It's until the child came back and they tell you, I'm like, were you there? I thought you were sleeping. And so they learn. So we have to do it. We have to teach. We have to have an impact. So somebody may not be a teacher, but you can help a teacher. You can assist a teacher, a child, help them with a child. It's one teacher at a time, one student at a time. So if Marcia is selling a book on STEM saying that there are other career options out there, you're looking at the book online and you close the link. Order the book, is not expensive, and give it to somebody. And that's, you never know. Maybe 5 years from now, they will tell you that, you know what, that book you gave me, that is what told me about engineer. That is why I got a scholarship in this. This is why I graduated. We love graduations. We love when somebody graduated from a university, doctor, so and so, graduated. We cheer. But how do you impact somebody's lives? And that is where I come from. And when I speak to people about, hey, let us do this for the children, I don't have any children in school. I didn't even go to WSSS school. I just want to know that when I come back in the village, I planted some seed that's going to grow. So let us tap into the kids. Let us encourage them. We are trying to bring technology to the school, tech in ed. And the electronic devices, they are not even as expensive as before. A tablet, you can get a nice tablet for under $80. A smart board, let's say $1,500, $2,000. Everybody I know, if you put $50, we can have a whole school of that. And now somebody might say, well, I'm the education organizations too. I don't know. I don't care. I know about me and what I want to do, what I want to see. If I want to see it done, we're going to do it. So like with Sandra and I doing this, we're taking it one step at a time. And Marcia would always say, you're doing stuff and you don't let people know, or you don't. I say, because sometimes I'm tired of people. I get tired of them. They like to be in things, but they don't support things. I don't have time for that. We want to do it. We want to see each other. Let's do it.
Yeah, and many times they don't see it through. Too short, too firm. They're hard at first, and then 2 weeks later, can't find them.
And so that's why I don't really do. I've been asked to do interviews about the program that we do in Marigold. I told my friend I ain't talking about it. But
You want to do it.
I'm just doing it. I'm tired of talking.
Yeah, and I think you speak very well about everything we are discussing this evening. But I think we just have to keep an open mind. Just keep an open mind for our children. Don't lock them into a particular field. I'm so happy I got a copy of this book again, Marcia. Thank you for writing this excellent book. And what I'm going to do, my daughter has some downtime this week and next week, and we're going to spend the time talking about the book. I'm not just going to hand it to her and say, here, go read this. No, you have to be there as a support system so that the child know that you're invested in their future, you're invested, you're interested in what they're interested in. And maybe by opening up this book, it might spur an interest in something my daughter maybe didn't even know she was interested in. So just providing options, just not limiting our children to what we want them to be, but what is available in this vast universe from them. So, Marcia Anderson, you have any thoughts you want to share right now before we start talking about girls and minority in the field?
Yeah, Simone, just before you go to Marcia and Anderson, I think we have someone on the overseas line.
Yes, thank you, Sean.
Good evening to you on the overseas line.
Yeah, good evening, Dominica. Good evening, St. Joseph.
Good evening.
I want to ask the engineer a question. I hear him talk about managing and houses for poor people or low-cost housing. I would like to ask them if they're paying for them houses or they give it to them free.
Good.
Because Dominica, we know the people getting house in Dominica, and we could consider them as poor people, but they are not paying for it. So I'd like to make him just get his knowledge about management of this special project. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Good question, Simone. So in the structure that I mentioned, in both when I worked at the city of Houston and where I currently work, which is a community plan and development of the United States government, there are options that provide single family affordable housing to low income individuals. Now, the way that works is it's really not free housing per se. It's what is called subsidized housing. You have to have a level of investment in the opportunity. And what happens when I mentioned earlier, when I worked at the city, there were 12 different programs. Let's just use one program for simplicity. Housing assistance program, where we provided $30,000. And the criteria or the options is you had to be low income meaning you had to be between 80% AMI, average median income, or below. That's one criteria. Then you have to commit to stay in that house for a period of 5 years. If you decide you want to sell the house before 5 years, you can do that. But the government invested $35,000 in that house. So the house will be whatever the price of the house is. You go out into the market and you select and you choose a house. What we do is, and I'm just using one program, there are many different programs. What we do is we facilitate the purchase of this home by giving you the down payment that you would require to buy this home and the closing cost for that home. And the restrictions are you have to make a certain amount of money, and then two, you have to commit to stay in the house for a certain period of time. And if you sell before that time, you're going to have to prorate repaying the government back based off that $35,000 that was invested in your home. Now, if you stay for the period of time, which is a maturity period, which is 5 years, then you don't pay for that home. You can actually sell that house and you can take the proceeds of that house. Lots of different programs. I mean, I can talk.
Yeah. So I'm just going to be blunt with you. I think what the caller is really asking you is, what are your thoughts on the government of Dominica giving houses for free in Dominica?
He doesn't have any thoughts on that.
Thank you.
That's
Joanne.
what the caller is asking you.
Simone, I really don't spend a lot of time in the details or the weeds of Dominican politics. So what's really happening on the ground, and probably I should be as a Dominican in the diaspora, but I'm not. So at this point, I truly do not have any comment on that. However, I would be willing to get connected with that particular caller. We can have an offline conversation. Should he be interested in having a one-on-one with me, and we can make arrangements for that to happen.
Right. So, because I think the broader question is, what are the best practices in accommodating folks with low incomes?
So
What is the best practices in accommodating. And I don't want to get off the topic too far, but I think that is the general question that we're looking at. So I'm very happy, Anderson, that you were able to tell us about some options that seem to be working well here in the US. Go ahead, Marcia.
I was going to say it, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about options and what works best, right? So within certain economies, within certain realms of education, some work best for the people that are involved with that. And, we sometimes depend on other people as parents. We depend on the teachers, right, to teach our students everything that they need to know. But there's not enough hours in the day for the contact hours of a classroom with 20 to 30 kids to get that done. And so we have to be able to do our part to educate our kids at home, to help the interest, to expose them to different things, right? It's all about choices. It's all about what works best. So what works best for Anderson doesn't necessarily work best for me. And so we have to identify that, whether it's government, whether it's education, whether it's money, whether it's food, right?
So I wanna continue where we left off and talk about why such an underrepresentation of girls and women, minorities and women in the space of engineering, considering all the different engineering options we've talked about and some that we haven't even touched on, but they're in the book that we're encouraging everyone to get. Why do we still see in 2024, where you as an instructor, Marcia, there's one woman in a class of engineering of men? And I want everyone's opinion. Joe and I even want you to chime in as well to let us know, what are your thoughts on that? Why are more women and minorities and girls not invested? So we have to talk about the obstacles that are getting in the way of having more of our minorities, girls and women in the fields of engineering. So let's open up the discussion.
So there was a study that was just carried out by Barbie, and it was said that when parents think about engineering, the question is normally asked, can my son be an engineer, right? It's never, can my daughter? And a lot of it is generational hardships, training. We don't know any better, right? But that doesn't excuse the repercussions of what we're carrying on, right? And so, when my daughter said she wanted to be an astronaut, I could have severed it. I was like, oh no, you could do this. Why can't she be an astronaut? Right? Why can't she be an aerospace engineer? And how do I set her up right now to do that? I can set her up to do that right now by buying her books, doing programs, and instead of buying her a doll, I will buy her a little engineering kit. And so they come to the house with rapid accuracy. There are lots of different companies where you can order them and one come a month, and Joanne comes over and she'd be sitting there tinkering. And, I cannot build some of the things that she's building, and she's not building anything in a particular area. It's vast and wide as engineering is, as STEM is. And so we have to do a part. And I think that we're not doing a part, and not knowing about something doesn't excuse you, right? You have to find out. You have to go seek the resources to do the things.
Simone, I would say, I think earlier in the program you asked the question, what is getting in the way related to minorities? And I love the way you asked it, because it kind of poses the bigger question. There seems to be a barrier, and I would say awareness is one of them. Not just not knowing sometimes can be our greatest enemy. Not knowing that the information is out there, not knowing that that's an opportunity that you have access to. One of the things Marcia does in her pre-engineering college program, she used the term earlier, industry partners, that there's an aspect of the program during the summer where she just brings in individuals in different fields in engineering. They come to the classroom and they just have open discussions with the kids, and sometimes hands-on opportunity or project, so that the kids can see from a real life perspective. These are some of the things you do in the field. And she always have me on that list, and I always probably find an engineer and somebody that I work with to try, because my schedule is so busy, I hardly have the time. But the few times that I have participated in the program, it has been so refreshing, and I get so much self gratification from it, because you can see the light in those children's eyes when you
Oh
have
yeah.
somebody from the field that comes in, and it's not somebody with a marker or a chalkboard, or somebody it's somebody that's given lived experiences of what happens day to day in the field. And I think that makes a difference, but it all begins with awareness. How do we start at the home, finding out what are the options out there so we can expose our kids to it, sending them to functions like what Marcia does on a yearly basis, and also just letting them know the opportunities that are available to them.
Yes, Joanne, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yes, it goes right back to awareness and knowledge because even with the population that I work with, which is special education, there's a whole different program for them, and even towards their end of high school years. What we do from the time they are 13, we conduct a transition interview with each student. Once you're 13, it doesn't matter if you can read, write, it does not matter. Because what we do is that we provide modification and accommodation. So that goes right back to your learning disability. Learning disability doesn't mean handicapped. It just means that that child may not be able to take a test with more than 10 students in a room. That students may not be able to read under certain lighting. That students may need a break in between halfway the testing period. So those are all of these things when we talk about special education. What does that child need to succeed in that classroom? So when we do the transition interview, we ask them questions about what is it that they would like to do after high school as a career. What is it that you want to do? A lot of them will say they don't know, but they will meet you after because they have gone home and they will come back and tell you, oh, I want to be a farmer. Oh, I want to be a doctor. Oh, I want to. So I said, where did you get that from? Say, oh, I was talking to my mom. And so they will change it the next year. And I tell them, it's okay. But the fact is, because we had that conversation, they started thinking, for real, how am I going to pay my bills? That fancy car that I want, how am I going to pay for it? Because the kids will tell you what they're going to have, where they're going to have it, and all of that, but not the means and ways of how to get it. So at 12, 13 years old, we are having that conversation. And one of the leading questions in the interview that we ask is there a job that somebody does that you like or would like to do? And they will say, well, my uncle does something with computer. I don't know what, And so we would talk more. What about it that you like? And we are talking children with disabilities. We have autistic kids, kids with Asperger's syndromes. We have behavioral issues, but they know they're going to grow. So I always challenge them. I said, listen, remember when you were in elementary school, 5 years, you are 13 years now. You are going in 5 years, you're going to be 18. What is it that you want to do? What is it you are going to do? And so it might be late at 13 having that conversation because Marcia kids are 8 and 9 and they do so much. But again, they are exposed. So we have to expose the kids to different things, not the same thing, or just expect them to know what is it that they want to do. As a teacher, well, in certain areas, kids just come to school. And they just come to school.
Yep.
No bag,
Yep.
no book,
No
pencil,
bag?
Oh, no, I'm telling, no pencil, no book, nothing. They just show
So
up.
what are they coming for?
Well,
Oh my gosh. Attendance?
Attendance is a big issue, and we have breakfast. You have the meals because remember there are other external factors with children. Some kids, the only meal is at school.
Wow.
So they have to come. There are kids, like we have kids. I have a kid that was in sixth grade and could not read or write. But guess what? You are in my presence. I need a grade because they're going to ask me for your grade. So you cannot not give me a grade. So I have to find out what is it that you can do. If I am teaching English and reading, can you tell a story? Can you create a story? Okay, you may not be able to write it. I got something for you. I got a headphone with a mic and I got a tablet. You go and sit down there and you talk that story. It will dictate it and I will have it. So I will know if you know something from beginning, middle, and end. That alone reduces behavior for the behavior students. So you have to know the students. Their kids come to school with nothing, but guess what? They are helpful. They want to be a leader. You want to be a leader. And the ones with the most behavioral issues are the ones that you can get to, help you get other kids under control if you put them in leadership position. So we just have to learn kids, understand kids, and tap into what they have, who they are, and it can be a success. Engage in their hearts and engage in their minds.
Yeah, and I think you speak so very well, Joanne, about the importance of what are we exposing our children to, including who are the people we're exposing our children to. Are we exposing them to professionals? Are we exposing them so that, like we talked about before, they have an opportunity to just have a casual conversation, no high stress, no high pressure, just a casual conversation with probably someone who's a doctor, probably someone who's an engineer, probably someone who's a pilot, just opening up their world so that they can say, wow, this resonates with me. I am drawn to this. This is going to make into a productive career where I'm going to be able to support myself, support my family. So who are the people we're exposing our children to? And I see, Anderson, you probably want to chime in, but we also have to talk about what are we speaking into our children? So we also have to talk about that fear of math. We don't talk about that enough. So I want us to spend some time talking about that fear of math that we have embraced and we are now instilling our children, and how that is putting them at a disadvantage. But Anderson, you look like you're about to jump off your chair, so jump in.
That's, I think, the last thing I wanted to comment on, and I'm glad you provided a segue for it. Is one of the most important subjects for any engineering field, and I think it's the elephant in the room as well, math.
Yes.
And it can be a barrier. Back to the question you asked earlier, what is getting in the way? It can be a barrier. I remember that was one of my fears when I decided to do construction technology. I remember walking into college level math one day, and after I left the class, I was like, well, I probably don't think this is for me. I need to be considering something else. But I remember at Texas Southern University, you had at least 5 or 6 different math teachers. And back to the question of options, I remember one semester, there was a teacher who taught me math. And she ended up being my math teacher throughout my entire college career. Because typically, in the field of math, the people who actually teach that skill set, they are very smart people, but they tend to be on the nerdy side, and that's just who they are. And they just do not have the social skill set and the communication skill set to bring the information to you in such a way that makes it palatable for learning. And I remember that very specific math teacher that I mentioned. It was a world of difference. For the first time, I saw math from a different perspective. Don't get me wrong, Master is the smart one. Doesn't mean I didn't have to go home and practice for 3 to 4 hours, but it made sense the way that she actually brought the information across. And so what I want to say is, simply because you have encountered a math teacher who may not have been the best at bringing the information to you does not mean that it is extremely difficult and challenging. It means that he or she does not have the right skill set in communicating information. And one of two things can happen. How do we get individuals like that who tend to have social skills issues? How do we get them better training so that they can teach the material better? Or how do we get the children the better option so that they can have an appreciation for this subject that is key to engineering?
Yeah, and Marcia, I want to come to you, but thank you, Anderson. That's such important points that you brought to our attention. But it also begins in the home, because what we find is many parents, for some reason, they're intimidated by math. Maybe they never did well in math at school. And what they do when a child comes to them with a problem in math, I don't understand math. No. Boy, me, math, I was never good in math, so don't ask me that question. You shut the child down. And what you're teaching that child is that math is this big, scary thing that me as a parent, I never understood it, so you're not going to understand it neither. And the child shuts down, right? Instead of saying, you know what, sweetie, I don't quite understand that problem. Take off that scary part of, I was never good in math. Don't ask me nothing about math. Remove that and simply say, you know what? I don't quite understand the problem. Let me get someone. And again, it comes back to, who are you affiliated with? Do you have someone? You may not have money to pay a tutor, But do you have someone in your circle of friends and family that you can have help your child with math? Because let's face it, I wasn't good at math. Guess what? My daughter is an A plus student in honors math. You know why she's an A plus student in honors math? Because I never told her I was not good at math.
There you go.
We have a friend who's a college level math instructor. And every time she would have a problem and the thing looked like Greek to me, I was like, oh my God, I don't know nothing about math now. I would say, you know what, let's call Miss Jacania. My husband would say, let's call Miss Jacania and let Miss Jacania. And I'm telling you, I mean, she was sitting here on FaceTime explaining to Sophia, and I still wasn't getting it.
This is, it's amazing.
Simone,
Oh, sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
think we have someone on the overseas line.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, good evening to you on the overseas line.
Yes, good evening. How you doing, man?
Hi, good evening.
Always a pleasure. Good evening. Always a pleasure listening. Good evening to you and your guest.
Yes,
I
thank
really,
you.
really, really love the conversation this evening, and it reminds me of where we are home. I grew up in a home of educators. My dad was a school principal, and Simone, I have been on your program several times, but never
Yes.
talked about it that extent. So at 9 years, I was already in grade 7 going to sit common entrance. But so when I passed common entrance, I haven't told a lot of people, and they didn't realize because I was always a big kid. I repeated twice in high school, right? And we always get in trouble because of of the way I learned and the way my brain functioned. I always had an open mind, and think differently from what you always taught in school. Later on, I think through those experiences, the biggest lesson I learned in life is how to fail, how to recover from failure,
Yep.
and to not be afraid of thinking outside of the box. And today, those lessons I learned growing up home, thinking outside the box, letting your mind go as far as it is, not conforming to all what they have taught me or how they have trained us, has helped me to be the person that I am today. I went on to study geology, did a minor in engineering, and did an MBA. And for somebody who the style of education at the time at home, I have always had an issue with it because it doesn't realize talent. We are basically taught to regurgitate certain stuff without having that creativity and thought. But there was something happening home that I think we didn't pay attention to. Most of the students who did very well went to Sifokor. Most of the students who probably were very intelligent but just learned in a different way went to technical college. And today, if you look at the professions of those people who have gone to the two universities, the students who have gone to technical college are doing way better financially than those who have gone to Sifokor. We've had a culture where it was only, you had to be a lawyer and a doctor, or a lawyer and a doctor. That's what you saw, and I think it's the people like us who probably took a beating because we didn't learn the traditional way, are probably being more successful because, one, we are not afraid of failure. Two, we think outside of the box. In that key component of special education that was not given to us, we learned to cope. One of my very good friends I went to school with also repeated twice in high school. He doesn't like me to say that, I wouldn't call his name, but he's a captain flying 737s all over the world. Can you imagine that? And I can guarantee you that guy is from Portsmouth. If I've seen him growing up, I guarantee you 99% of the people will have never thought that guy would have been in the position he is. And I think it's partly because we were just misunderstood and there was not a learning system designed for people like us who probably were gifted and talented and, could have fallen through the wayside. And I often ask myself, how many young people who have probably lost out and missed out because our traditional way of teaching has really failed them. So I really, really enjoy listening to the program tonight. I got involved in STEM and got involved in geology because I didn't want to sit down in an office doing work and stuff. I wanted to be out in the mountains exploring. My brain
Right.
couldn't be contained, you see? And And today, if I had to do it again, the only regret I have, I didn't leave early. I still leave Dominica early enough. But as you guys mentioned, you talk about financing and all that good stuff. And I heard the gentleman give his story about somebody telling him to go. So even after I repeated high school twice, I started teaching in high school at 19 years. And, I realized growing up home at that early age, it was going to be difficult for me to be the best of myself in Dominica because of society. And Mark, as I said, my dad was a school principal. Most people know my father was a disciplinarian, a school principal. I realized at that early age, and I had to leave. I said to him I was going to study. He said, "Do you want to go to Cuba?" I'm like, I had a problem learning English in school. I'm not going to somewhere I have to learn Spanish and then learn. And I insisted on going. I think that would give me the best opportunity. And in everybody's life, in every human life, you have to sometimes discover who you are. It's sad that we don't have that help, so you have to do it on your own.
Right.
But through the sixth form college, I found out I was very good at critical thinking, very good at geography. It came in naturally. And I always question, and you that will explain to you why I run my mouth so much, because I always wondered why the heck we were doing critical thinking in college. What's the purpose of that? Well, I think that's one of the most important and underrated subjects home, because without profound solution, without critical thinking, you can't have profound solution. And without critical thinking, you won't have special eds in the school, because people are not allowed to think beyond the box they are put in. And a lot of us got in trouble for thinking beyond the box. And today, I'm not going to gloat about anything, because as one of the ladies says, sometimes you do stuff. Talking all the time is not just what I do, but the actions with motivating people, motivating young people, and telling them if I could do it. And Simon, you always hear me say, I raise up in Ben's raising pigs and carrying yam and doing all that stuff in my head. And I'm very proud to have done it, because that's what makes me who I am. I learned how to work hard, learn how to be determined, and learn how not to be afraid of failure. But that's what much as I was tonight. I'll continue listening, and I think that's an excellent program. I think that's a wonderful program.
Yes. Thank you, Lennon. Thank you so much for that. So I wanted to engage with Marcia, but I should see she has stepped away for just a little while. So let us talk also, because I think the other area we have to consider, and the time is flying on us, the other area we have to consider is the importance of AI. So that is yet another emerging field that we'll have to look at. But before we talk about that, Marcia, if you're able to just tell us about the importance of overcoming that fear of math, so that our children have an opportunity to, get the training and the career in the area of STEM.
I think, overcoming math is all about your effort that you put in. I'll give you a short story. My daughter, she's going to school. She came home, she's like, I need help with math. And so I called the school. I was like, could you put my daughter in tutorials? And I was like, no, your daughter is one of the better kids. She's testing in advance. Da, da, da. I said, if my daughter asks for help with math, then she should be given help with math.
Yep.
They put her in tutorials. And she went there. I was like, what did you do today? Oh, nothing. The teacher didn't give me anything. And so I realized that I had to take her and find a program for her. And so, during COVID, she was, what if she had a problem with a particular sector, like maybe fractions, or I would get someone like online to just do that subject. So we followed along with the teacher. And so I realized I had to put her in tutoring. So there's a program called Kumon Learning. I took her over there. They had to test her to see where she was. And so they deconstructed all the math that she knew and took it all the way back to kindergarten. One of the things that they found out is that she knew systematic math, not mental math. The problem with systematic math is that if you make one mistake, the whole thing is wrong, because you learn to do math, and that's how the school system here teaches it. You learn to do math based on systems. And I'm sure when your daughter comes, you're like, I've never seen this before. That's not how we do math.
Completely different.
Right. And so what the tutoring agency did, they deconstructed everything she learned all the way back down to kindergarten and had her start back at the beginning, back to kindergarten. It was like, okay, this is how we do addition. Not all these systems. This is how we do multiplication and division. Not all these systems mentally. So if you know the times table, if you understand the process, it should come naturally to you. You should see the number, and the number should work itself out, and you know the answer. And so they retaught her that portion of it. And so now she's testing 3-4 grades above her level, because they were able to do that. As Caribbean people, as Dominicans, we are gifted in that area. We do not know systematic math. We know mental math. I remember my grandfather. My grandfather was a farmer. He had never been to school. You kind of play with him and his numbers, not his money, not his numbers. He would call it out, and you're on the calculator still trying to figure it out. So that's one great thing about us Caribbean people. We have the ability. Probably we cannot explain why we have the ability, but the ability is ingrained in the teachers. I know some of the, our teachers like Sandra Green and Miss Merle, I heard was on the
Teacher Merle.
Right. And these numbers bring such fond memories because, they taught us well. Even for the things that we didn't think that we knew. So I'd say that everyone has the ability, take fear out of the way, approach it one topic at a time, one class at a time, one subject at a time, and you'll get there.
Yeah. And the other thing is, don't be afraid to say you need help. As adults, we tell each other all the time, if you need help, ask for help. But for some reason, we think that if our children need help, need tutoring, they are less than. No, it simply means that they've come across an obstacle that they need to get past so they continue learning and growing. So get them the help. So if Sophia ever needs help in tutoring, I tell her all the time, are you getting the information? Do you need any extra help? Sometimes the teachers will stay after school a couple of days out of the week to provide the tutoring. But if we need someone else, that's what you do. So we have to get over that fear of math that it's like this generational thing that we keep passing on to our children, and then they pass it on to their children, and then it results in a lack of opportunity. It results in a lack of attaining better jobs. So guys, it looks like the time is speeding along. So it is time for our final thoughts. So Joanne, I want to start with you. And again, I want to thank you guys for being here as we talked about opportunities in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And, we didn't get around to talking about AI, but we had another program on that. So that is another area that parents should be looking into as the world continues to evolve and change. So again, thank you for joining us this evening. Joanne, your final thoughts?
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me here tonight to talk about special education. That's my role. And STEM and special education, there's an interconnectedness in there because it approaches all the different learning styles of the students. And so with what we are doing in schools, I just want to say again that it exposes, children developing their learning systems. We'll expose them to technology, which will help foster creativity, build enthusiasm. That's one of the things, because if you're not reaching the children in the class, you cannot teach them. Through the inclusion of technology into the classroom, we know that teachers will be able to cater to the various learning styles using differentiated approach, which will provide the rigor needed to meet the students at their personal learning levels, not what the curriculum just say. And also the reason for promoting technology is also to promote marketable skills to include, but not limited to, teamwork, collaboration, and the young man who called before said critical thinking. What about project-based learning? Not everybody wants to write something, problem solving, and about social skills, because when they play on the using technology, they work as team, and sometimes they have to explain what they did, and it have become very competitive. So using technology, it tap into all their learning styles, and we want to say, engaging is a big word, and then we follow it by saying engaging hearts and minds. That is the only way that we're going to get children to learn. And forget about lecturing. If our appraisers were to come in the room and see us lecturing a class, we will get a very low score. Right. So it's engagement and using technology for math too. Play the games. You're gonna learn the skills, how to get to the top. How do you get across? How do you get under? So all of that. So once again, thank you, Marcia. I see that my internet stopped. We made it through 10 o'clock. I'm still awake.
Yes. That's
I was
good.
a, I was a bit worried, but all is well, and
Yes.
we'll talk again. There's a lot more going on, and
Yes,
Simon will tell
yes,
you
and
all
I'm
about
hoping
it.
to collaborate with you and Marcia and Sandra so we can continue doing the good. But we just have to stop thinking about that one size fits all approach
It
in
doesn't. It
education. You know,
doesn't.
as you're talking, that's what is in my mind. That one size fit all approach that we try to just blanket all children with, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't get it, well, you know, you just fall to the wayside. We have to do better for our children. So, Marcia Anderson, your final thoughts, and Marcia, remind us again about the book and where we can get it.
Okay, so this book, STEM Traction, is available on all platforms where books are sold: Target, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Books a Million, Walmart. It is my hope that everyone can get the book. It sparks conversation. It has been a bestseller on many different platforms, in many different categories. But it's all about engineering, technology, engineering, and math, and getting attraction in. An attraction, but not only an attraction, but attraction in how we dig in. And so as students, parents, stakeholders continue their journey, let's continue to cultivate curiosity, embrace challenges, build support systems, and have continuous learning. In addition to all that, we need practical training. We need hands-on experiences that will solidify everything that we learn. We in the Caribbean, we are geared, we have been equipped, right, with everything that we need to succeed if we but go ahead and overcome it. If you're scared, it's because it's the right decision. Every time I've been scared witless, it's because I was about to do the right thing. Let's do the scary thing, because the scary things, they pay off.
And Sandra again wants you to translate it into French. So we can only see more and more opportunities for this very important tool and resource that you have created. So thank you so much, Marcia, for sharing with us. Anderson, your final thoughts?
Simone, I think one of the things you started off is that there's brain drain in Dominica. And acknowledge and identify that. And also acknowledge that I'm part of the problem. I'm one of those who came over here to study with a degree that I think was relevant and important for our country, but never went back home. But that does not mean that I have to continue to be a part of the problem. I can also be a part of the solution. And one of the things that we are working on is STEM traction. And we're in the process of completing the website. It's in the beta stage. That allows us the opportunity to be able to provide those opportunities far and wide, to use your term earlier, technology as a global village where we can bring everybody, doesn't matter where you are, in awareness of the information. Actually, STEM Traction it's designed in a way that it's a premier pre-college engineering educational organization aimed at providing enrichment opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics through hands-on learning, career exploration, engineering design, and financial literacy. It will provide middle school and high school students with the skills and attributes needed to prepare them for engineering careers. So I would say that is a key development that we're working on our end so that we can make the information more accessible to individuals in our mother country who we think will benefit from it. And the last thing I'll say, I think the caller from Ben's used the term regurgitating, which I love. Interestingly, in our school system, pretty much from you start school all the way through your bachelor's degree, we are taught through the regurgitating process where they teach you something, they expect you to regurgitate it and give it back to them. I remember I was shocked when I went to my first class in graduate school. My first assignment was to write a paper on why the sky is gray. And this was madness to me because the sky is blue, but the teacher wanted us to justify that the sky is gray. And I remember I ended up in this heated discussion with her because this did not make any sense to me. But the issue was not about the sky being gray. It was the opportunity to be able to drive us in a critical thinking component. Simply because somebody have told you all your life something is what it is does not mean it is what it is. You have to come up with your independent assessment of why you think it is what it is. And I think we need to move the direction where we help foster and create independent thinkers so that people can make good choices as they move forward in life.
Yes, absolutely. Very well said. So, again, thank you for being here. We were joined on this program. How are we preparing the youth of Dominica for career opportunities in science, technology, engineering, and math? We were joined by Mrs. Marcia Robin Stoute, who is an engineering instructor and the author of STEM Traction. We were also joined by Ms. Joanne Prince, educator, radio personality, and a member of the Marigot Education Enhancement Movement. And we were also joined by Mr. P. Anderson Stout, Director of Community Planning and Development. And again, this speaks to a national policy, because we always have to figure out how do we engage the government in everything that we are talking about, because again, they have to be the lead in many of our discussions, because we see a lot of students receiving scholarships. But are we giving scholarships to students to encourage them to pursue careers that are emerging? So scholarships in STEM would be a very important option, because we see quite a few people graduating with yet another law degree. And yes, law is important and medicine is important, but we have to expand the horizon and expand the world for our children. So again, we want to thank everyone who joined us, whether you join us via the radio, you join us on Facebook, and we see Alpha Plus on YouTube saying, thanks for putting this program together. I myself was a special education recipient and now a professional in the construction civil engineer division. Thanks again. Very inspiring. So thank you, everyone. Alfred Inches, I know you couldn't see the book too well, but again, if you simply go on Amazon and you type the book STEM Traction into, yes, come closer, lower it. There we go. Thank you, Marcia.
That's right.
Traction. There you go. So hopefully, Alfred, hopefully you were able to see it better. Father Herman Shaplis, thank you, Father, for being here with us. Good night. He says, good night, Andy. Good to hear you. John Francis, Delia Newton, so many people on the Facebook Live. So everyone, thank you for being here. We can't read all your comments, but we want to thank you for your contribution. And we want to thank you for joining us again for our #1 program for featuring the people, the projects, the different initiatives geared towards moving Dominica forward, because again, we have so many people doing such wonderful work, and we are happy to provide the platform to be able to promote their work and also to have you, the audience, engage with us. So what role can you play in this wonderful projects that you've heard about this evening? And if you miss any portion of the program, you can go back to YouTube or Facebook and simply type in Q95 FM radio on Facebook and YouTube, and you will be able to see the entire program. So what role can you play? Can you maybe offer some funding so that Marcia Anderson and Joanne and Sandra can now take that engineering summer program and bring it to Dominica? Because with 17 years of experience, they clearly know what they're doing, and they're funded by a university and the government, right?
Yes,
so these institutions are not going to invest in them if they're clueless. So what role can you in the audience play to ensure that this program can reach our students in Dominica? So I want to thank you for being here. Again, we have many ongoing projects over at Push Past 10. So you can visit pushpast10.com. That's pushpast10.com. And we have our priority you, because we are so tired of the RIPs, the rest in peace, that we keep hearing over and over again for our young people. So we've started an initiative, a public service announcement, a worldwide public service announcement, where we have voices such as Gordon Henderson, Delia Coffee Weeks, Margot LaRocque, Tanya Dixon, so well-known Dominicans and friends of Dominica who are going to remind us of the importance of taking 30 minutes out of your day to ensure that you are living a healthy lifestyle with our 3 M's, our mindset, our meals, and our movement. So again, more information about this on Push Past 10. And if you're interested in connecting to any of our guests this evening, you can simply send me an email at pushpast10@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to link you to them. So again, thank you, DJ Shan. Thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Mr. G and the Q95 family for allowing us the opportunity to be here on this program. We look forward to being in your company for another episode of Roots Connections on Q on April 10th. So mark your calendar, set a reminder in your phone that we'll be back on April 10th for another engaging opportunity. And Marcia, Anderson, and Joanne, I look forward to continuing working with you to, continuing the work that you're doing. Anderson, you have anything you want to add?
No, thank
Yes,
you.
very good.
Thank you so much, and thanks to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. Have a
everyone.
good evening.
Yes, have a good evening, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Roots Connections on Q, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. every other Wednesday on Q.